Hello, my name is Alan Smith, and I'm going to go over how I rig a muscle up in a character. I'm going to skip over a lot of the setup parts because I have most of it already set up. As you can see, when I take off the body, I have the capsules the uh, for the muscles to start out, and I already set up the skin uh, for the uh, paint muscle weights that are already on it. Um, I am just going to try to do this as fast as I can, but get it to look good. Um, and why I'm going to try to go over why I do what I do when I'm making this muscle. As you can see, I have a lot of uh, a lot of layers, and I think that's the first step that you have to attack muscles with is you have to make a layer for almost each muscle. So I'll have biceps over here, and I will make the bicep, and then I'll mirror it over, and then I'll put both those biceps onto the bicep layer. So when I come through, I'm not messing with a whole bunch of muscles, and it's going to slow down your system. And I I was having so much trouble, and then once I figured out that I could put it under layers, and the layers would just hide it, and Maya just wasn't receiving. I guess it wasn't receiving that information. It was hiding that information, and it's not calculating at that time. Um, and it's so much faster. I noticed that when I was painting, I'm not getting lag through when I'm painting that everyone else is saying that they're getting. I'm not getting when I'm actually moving everything around. I'm not getting any kind of lag, especially when you go up like this. I got it. It's just smooth. It's not an issue that people keep running into. I have my home computer that I'm running off of, but I've done it off of Mac Pro, and it works for the Mac. But if you're going to use muscles, I suggest that you run it off a good machine. Uh, it's just it just helps when you come into painting. So right now, I have my calves already done, or I have the outer calves done. Uh, so I hide those so my machine's not calculating anything for that. Um, and then we're just going to go into how I go into making a bicep. I'm going to go up to muscle and bone, and I'm going to go to muscle creator. I know a lot of people like to use simple muscle. Um, for me, muscle creator gives me enough control for what I'm doing. I'm not trying to make the muscle. I'm not trying to put the skin on the muscle itself. I'm trying to make the muscle move the skin the way I want the skin to move. Um, and you'll see that as I go on. Uh, so I will go in and I'll use 5 cross sections and 8 around. Um, and this seems to work. Um, for everything that I've done, you can go up a little bit more if you want a little bit more control over each muscle. Depending on what kind of character. This character already has definitions, so it's a lot easier, and I don't need that. I don't need a lot of control to get what I want out of this character, and you'll see that as I go on. So what I'm going to start attaching is I'm going to go for the left arm bind, and I'm going to add it, and then I'm going to go down to the elbow bind, and I'm going to add it, and this is going to set up a muscle. Now if we hide the body, you'll see the muscle. So what I like to do here is I don't like having these facing this way. I don't know why. It could just be just me being me, but I like taking the muscle and turning it the way I want, and it helps me line it up a little bit better, and that's probably the reason why I do it this way. Um, and this lets me know that X, when I go back into edit, X is going to be controlling the width, and Z is going to control the depth. So when I come up here, what I'm going to try to do is put these locators that are controlling the muscle, and I want to put it almost on the joint. It can go up and down the joint. The thing is these locators are controlled by this joint, and then these locators are controlled by this joint. So depending on how you have your joint set up is how it's gonna manipulate your control. So what I'm trying to do is get this lined up the way I want, and try to make this almost follow this yellow line. So same thing with this up here. We're trying to get this to like match almost. So we're pulling this back out. This is just to set it even. This is giving me, misclicked on that one. I'm still misclicking. And let's just bring this down over here. That looks good, and then we're going to extend this out just a little bit down here. So we have that, and we're going to put it near the joint. So that should give us pretty good control of what we want. It's on good line, so when I go up and flex, it's not going to be off center. We can take a look at the body. Maybe it's a little off. Let's go to X-ray. And let's turn that off so we can see a little better. So honestly, this is good enough. I could probably adjust it a little more if I wanted to. But the angle of the arm is about what I want. I might take this right here and throw that out like that, just a little bit. Okay. And like that. There we go. That'll work. All I'm trying to do is to make sure when I'm scaling that it's gonna squash and stretch in this right direction that I want it to. And technically, I could take it over a little bit more toward the inside of the arm, but honestly, this will do just fine. I'm going to go into Edit, and then from Edit, I can set the rest state. This is going to be the rest state. I see I have 0 on my rotation, so I know this is going to be the relaxed state. This is where I want the relaxed state to be. He's relaxed. He's not like squishing. He's not flexing his arm. He's not extending his arm. This is just him, basically him at rest. So I'm going to click rest, make sure it's at rest, and I'm going to go ahead and turn off the squash and stretch. And then the location is based off of this. So the top of the joint is going to be over here, and this is going to affect the top over here. And then the lower side you're going to get is going to affect the lower side down here. So when I'm in rest state, I'm trying to get it as close as possible. It does not have to be perfect. Uh, and you'll see why when I get to the painting. But let's go over here, and let's turn down that just a little bit. Come out toward the center, make it pop up a little bit more right there, and we should be good right there. And then let's turn off Z, go back toward the center, and just widen out just a little bit. And if we go off of X-ray mode so you can see this a little better, you can see that I have the muscle outside the skin. Like I said, it does not matter for what I am doing. If it was something that I was trying to make, let's say he just had a flat arm and someone came in and was like, hey, I want muscles on this guy. Well, how much muscle do you want? This is where muscle, the muscle placement would be a lot more vital to the situation. I'd have more segments than 5. I'd probably have 10 to give me the muscle I want, to get the arms the way to look the way I want. But 5 is good for right now, like I said, because this does not matter. It does, but it doesn't matter that it's outside the skin. We're going to go into, I'll put it back to Z. We're going to go off of rest state, and we're going to squash. So for squash, we're going to go up here, and we want a good number. So we come down over here. Let's go negative 95. And let's keep it at negative 95. That's going to be our stretch. And we need to remember that, so when we do the triceps, that's going to be our location that we need to hit. So we're good here. So we're going to set the squash stretch or state. You see how the muscle actually grew. So I'm going to come back over here. And honestly, this is about what you want. I wouldn't say it's not off, but I am going to honestly, that's fairly good. I might just bring that up just a little bit. And we can change that in painting to how the arm looks. So we're done with the stretch. I'm going to hit stretch one more time just to make sure. I like doing it. I don't think you have to, because you're only affecting the stretch state, and you set the current, which is this and this location, to negative 95. So now what we want to do is we're going to come back over here, and let's go to, let's look at 20. So we have it at 20. The armor's there, but you know how animators are. Let's go 25. And that extends it out just a little bit more, and this covers just about everything that we need. So, and I'm thinking when I extend this much out and the animator breaks the rig, I think this is going to be the furthest that it's going to go before it starts snapping and rotating over in an IK or FK. But this is fairly straight. It's actually going back a little bit. So this just gives me a little bit more of a leeway when I use it. I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to affect the stretch. And I'm going to set current state as stretch. And then you'll see that the muscle kind of just disappeared. It's not there anymore. So let's go over here and turn off our body, and you'll see that it just completely just turned our muscle flat. So this is where I will actually take this up a little more, because I don't want the muscle to be, when you extend your arm like that, the muscle is not going to go flat like that off a rest. it's only going to change just a little bit. So what I want to do is I'm just going to crank this up, go back up. Let's change the location. Let's make that go up a little bit more. Actually, let's take that back down. Right there. Come down here. Extend that out. Go all the way down. Extend it out. Maybe a little more there. And that should be good. Let's turn off shading. Yeah. Let's go back up here. And I might just want it just on the inside. So let's turn that down there. Very little to compared to what I was at. Go back to X-ray, make sure. We got just about maybe a centimeter or two. I might want to just bring that up just a little bit. There. Maybe a little bit more right there. Come back up here and turn that down. And this is just knowing what I need and how much I've been messing with muscles and knowing how I'm going to paint it to where I want it to sit. And then I'm going to hit stretch one more time just to make sure we're at the stretch phase, and then we'll go back to 0. So now, if we go ahead and turn off the body, and let's just take this over a little bit more. Shading, let's turn off the shading. So this is our muscle at relax. And then if we turn this up, we get nice squash. And if we turn it down, we're getting that stretch. So this is what we want. That's going to be a good enough bicep muscle for what I need. So I'm going to click the bicep muscle, the actual surface of it. I'm going to come over here, and this is where the naming comes in. So I'm going to search for LT, and I'm going to replace it with RT. This is going to make the muscle on the other side and have all the squash and stretch the same. So I'm not getting different squashes and stretches for each arm, and it looks weird. So if he stretches both arms, they look similar when it comes to when he does a flex. So we're good here, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to mirror on the X, and I'm going to mirror muscle from selection, which is this muscle. So there we go. Now, before you freak out, what it looks like if you've ever modeled in Maya is your surface is flipped. It's a really easy solution. So what we're going to do is go into modeling. We're going to come up to surface. We're going to come down to reverse direction. This is going to flip it back on the other side. Now we're good. And I'm going to go back in the rigging. And then you'll see we have that stretch, and we have that stretch, and we have that squash. So very good. Let's make sure that's back at rest. It is at 0. So now I have 2 biceps. So the next step in the stage is, let's exit that out. We're at the muscle menu, which you'll find under deformer, and then go down to muscle, and all I did is tore it off. After that, we want to make sure our skin is set up. My skin's already set up, so I already painted this. And the reason why I paint this is because I use NG Skin Tools, and it's a lot faster and easier way to paint a model Um, if you haven't heard of them, go check them out. NG Skin Tools. It's a great tool. I suggest using it. It saves me probably hours on painting. So we're gonna go to Skin Up or Skin Setup, and then we're gonna convert smooth skin to Maya muscle or to muscle system. And then a little window's gonna pop up, and it's gonna ask you which axis, and if everything's set on x-axis going down, so I click x-axis, and then you want it to auto calculate. It's going to go through a couple loading bars, get the skin set up. It's also going to ask you if you want to discard or disable the skin that you already have. I do disable. I already have it saved, so if I ever have to go back, I can always go back underneath skin, and I just export it out. And if I need to, I can re-import it. But for right now, I disable it. It doesn't seem like it does anything different. It just turns it off, basically. But it's going to use the smooth skin that you used to set up the muscle paint. And when we get into the muscle paint, what I like to do before is I like to go to weighting, and I like to prune weights. And I like to set it, what I find out to be just about right is going to be 0.005, and I prune weights. That's going to give me, it gets rid of all the extra little fragments all around the body, and gives me a nice smooth layer. So when I go into the paint muscle weights, and you'll see we got the hip, we got the back, and you can see where it's, normally I'll have little speck here, little speck here. All it's doing is getting rid of the paint that's really not even, that shouldn't be there. And it gives you, even like this right here. Honestly, this is not going to really affect it because I'm going to have to put a muscle down here anyways, and it's just going to get rid of that little area. I'm not worried about the actual painting right now, because all it is basically a base layer that I'm using. When I go into painting the muscle, it's going to affect the painting. You'll see when I get the arm. So when I go down to, let's say, the arm, LT arm, we have all this red, which red means it's got basically 100%. And then when we scroll down all the way, you'll see that I have an outer calf left and right, and that's for down here. That's for my calves. So why I show you this first is to show you that these muscles are actually not even registering for the skin right now. So what we have to do is, let's close out that, and we're going to select both these muscles. We're going to go up to object mode, and then we're going to click the skin before I forget, and then we're going to connect select muscle objects, and this is going to connect it to the skin. And then we're going to auto calculate, and it goes through these loading bars, LT, RT, and we are good there. So now when we go back to painting, we'll scroll all the way to the bottom. Now we have our biceps. Now we can paint our biceps in. And the easiest way to paint, let's go ahead and let's exit this out. And we're going to go over here, and we're going to take the biceps, the two bicep groups, and we're going to put it underneath our layer. We're going to add selected, and then we're going to turn it off. Now we're going to go back to paint. Now let's go back to LT bicep. This is going to be this bicep right here. This is what I was telling you about the naming. Make sure you're naming, which one you're using. Now the bicep, what we want to affect is this area right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold B, and I'm going to stretch my brush out to right around 5. And then we're going to come up here, and even this fade system right here, either one will work. I just find this one would be a little bit better. Gives me a little bit more fall off, and it's easier. I don't have to go back through each time and have to worry about it. So let's see. We got our weighting at 100. Let's go back and let's put it at, let's say 20. 20 is fine. I'm going to come back through. We're going to make sure it's under sticky weights. And our opacity is at 100. So when we come through, I'm going to take it, and you see I got that yellow, which is giving me that 20% that I want. I'm going to come through and just about everything I want affected. And I'm just going to come back through and make sure everything is good. And that looks about right. So I'm going to come back through and I'm going to do the same exact thing. And it doesn't look like it's doing. So let's bump this up a little bit. Let's go to this one. Oh. Before we do that, let's Control Z back, which it's not going to let me. So we don't want replace, we want add. So this is going to mess up just a little bit, but I don't think it's going to mess up that bad. Let me go to my left arm and see. No. Elbow. So it's given a little bit to the clavicle and the arm. I just want to make sure that it's not giving it to anything else besides those, because then it could be bad. So we see that the elbow, that we have a little bit up here. So we'll just go back to the pruning. We'll come back here. We'll go back to weighting, and we'll prune weights. We'll set this at 0.5, and we'll prune it. Let the system do its thing. So it's actually a little bit more than 0.5. I don't want to go over too much. It's going to lose this. And honestly, if I have to, I can go right here. I put it at 0. And it's not going to let me. Okay. What I could do is just do this right here. So we're going to go add. Oh, it could be because I'm adding 0. Let's go back to the elbow. Yeah, there it goes. So I'm getting rid of that. And that should go to the arm. But of course, it's going to go to just about everything else. Clavicle. I really don't want the clavicle to come down here and affect this. So this is stuff that the pruning did not get it. So I'm going to come back through, replace. And that will do because the shoulder's going to come in later on, so I'm not worried about it. So let's go back to LT arm. Actually, LT bicep. We want to add. And we want to add that 20% roughly. We got right there. Good. Now we're getting a little bit higher yellow, which is what we want. We're just getting that drop off a little bit. Now I'm going to keep going, and as you see, as I paint, that it's affecting the verts. So if I come down here, might not show it too much at the rest state, but it's affecting the verts from where the muscle is. So wherever the muscle is, the verts here are going to try to go to match the muscle. So I'm only using this, and you'll see it move just a very little bit because I'm only using 20% at a time. So we're about at like 60 right here. 60 to 70%, which is fine. And then you'll see little jerks, but this is actually coming out really well. Let's turn this down just a little bit, and I just want this down here to be affected, because that's part of the bicep muscle. And then there, and then after everything's done, even though it looks alright, I'm going to go ahead and smooth this out. And what smoothing is going to do is make sure it's not really janky. And you'll see it come up on, like, right in through here on the edge, where it starts to get like a real sharp. If you got the muscle, say we extended the muscle out on the X, so it puffs it out wide. So that verts right here are going to try to snap to the muscle along that side. So if we look, let's go ahead and pull out the actual bicep muscle so you can see. So all that verts are doing is trying to match the surface. I don't go 100% because it doesn't need to be 100% with, this is where I was talking about, don't worry about the muscle being on the outside, because when it comes to it, I'm not doing 100% where this muscle is going to be. I'm only doing it so it affects the skin just enough to give me the jiggle that I want and the actual squash and stretch that I want. And that's the end goal right now. This is just to get the muscle, this is to give us some jiggle and some basically correction. So when we get done with this, as we see, we got the bicep. And we're going to go through and we're going to go ahead just make sure everything looks alright. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to click this right here, and I want this to squash. Not that much. Our thing was negative 95. So I'm going to look right here. And you can see where it's kind of like jagged right here. It's got a really, really deep fall off. So what we're going to try to do right here is we're just going to take the smooth, come back down to the bicep, and all we're going to do is try to smooth this out so it doesn't look as deep. And you can see the skin actually moving now. Even like right here, see how it's kind of like, there we go. So we get a smooth drop off. And then, honestly, the stretch, once you get that, the stretch should be good. And what we were at, like 25. So we're at 25 right around there. And just short. And honestly, let's show them that. Let's make sure everything's good. It looks good. Okay. So, Go ahead and turn off the paint. So now when we're looking here, we're going to get good. Now you can see our skin actually moving to give us a good squash and good stretch. And then later on I'm going to do the triceps on the back, and when I smooth that out, it's going to go into the other arm, and it's going to look a lot nicer and a lot smoother when everything gets done. I don't like painting until I get the section of muscles. So for the bicep, I like doing the bicep and then the 2 triceps on the backside, and then I will come in and paint, because then I can actually see what I need to smooth out. But this is how I go through and make a muscle. Like I said, all I'm trying to do is to get the squash and stretch right, and then when I come around later, I can come through the muscle system over here, and then I can turn on jiggle, gravity, and how much jiggle, and then you can actually do a fall off on the jiggle itself. So the center of it might jiggle a little bit more than the outside. And it's going to look really nice on the calves and the back of the leg, because if you ever watch a runner, you hit the ground, you can see the leg shake or jiggle, and that's muscle jiggle, and that's what we're trying to simulate. But that is all I have right now. And that's how I go through a muscle system. I think it was about, maybe this video is about 30 minutes long, maybe a little more. I was going through and explaining a lot of things. And I really wasn't rushing. I was trying to get my thoughts on everything and make sure that you understand that why I'm doing this over a different way someone else is doing it. But that is all I have.